Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. The law of the land seems to be finally catching up with the high-profile Padma Bhushan awardee, former CEO of ICICI Bank, Chanda Kochhar, who was finally sacked on charges of corruption and such malpractices by the bank. The story so far has been that she was appointed as the managing director of the bank sometime in 2009. Between 2009 to 2011, she ended up giving a number of fraudulent loans, as we would say, to the Videocon group and to the Essar group. Thousands of crores of loans were given by the bank during her tenure, and those loans turned bad. They inflicted losses of thousands of crores on ICICI Bank. And why were these loans given? These loans were given for a quid pro quo, for a consideration, which we would call bribes. Hundreds of crores of bribes were paid to Chanda Kochhar and her family in consideration of these bogus loans given by ICICI Bank during her tenure to the Videocon group and to the Essar group. These bribes were paid by these groups by way of so-called investments made by them in New Power Renewables, a company owned by her husband Deepak Kochhar. So these were on paper investments made by those groups in his company, and they were either written off or they were sold for a song or gifted away by those groups, because in reality those were bribes paid and they were not investments made by them. So the trio of the Kochhars got into this entire business of sanctioning bogus loans, which happened during her tenure as the CEO of the bank, fraudulent loans given. Her husband received the proceeds of bribes by way of capital or investments in his companies, and the other person who played a key role of whatever sorts was her brother-in-law Rajiv Kochhar, who ran a consulting firm called Avista Consulting, and which was a key beneficiary by way of lucrative consulting assignments for restructuring and rehabilitation of bad loans during her tenure. It was a Kochhar family affair to create those proceeds of crime and finally launder them. It all began with a whistleblower's complaint sometime in 2015-16. At that point of time, nobody was willing to listen that these kind of crimes had been committed by Chanda Kochhar. In 2016, in fact, the Reserve Bank of India gave her a clean chit. The whistleblower persisted. Sometime in February 2018, the CBI registered a preliminary inquiry in the case, and in response to that, in March 2018, the board of directors of the bank passed a resolution saying that they stood behind her completely. They supported her to the hilt, to the extent that the then chairman of the board of directors made a press statement stating very clearly that she had done nothing wrong and they were all with her. But then the evidences started catching on with her, and various agencies and authorities got into motion. Apart from the CBI, the SEBI instituted an inquiry and investigation. Income Tax Department as well as CBI raided her. They continued their investigation, and even ED got into picture. At that point of time, even ICICI Bank appointed its own internal inquiry and also appointed an inquiry panel headed by retired Justice Sri Krishna. Retired Justice Sri Krishna's report came in January 2019, and he clearly held her guilty of having violated the code of conduct. Somewhere midway, she was sacked by the board of directors of ICICI Bank, which she says she was not sacked. She took a retirement on her own. Apart from this, at that point of time, the bank then said that she needed to pay back all the bonus and incentives and shares by way of ESOPs that had been paid to her as part of her being the CEO of the bank. At this point of time, investigation continues against her by all these agencies. Prosecution proceedings should commence at some point of time. So SEBI has made its investigations, CBI has done that, ED has done that, Income Tax has done that. She also faces court suits related to the claim of ICICI Bank against her, seeking to claw back all the bonus and incentives that were paid by the bank to her when she was its CEO, as we said. The latest in the case is that the Enforcement Directorate is now proposing to attach her assets worth over 800 crores. These assets are by way of her house property, her residential house in a very posh building in South Bombay, offices of her husband, shares, investments and other assets. A self-made bank employee is what she was, and 800 crores is one part of the assets which is being seized by the Enforcement Directorate. That is the extent of ill-gotten booty that came into her system, misusing her power as CEO of the bank. The irony of it all is that this particular house, which is proposed to be attached by CBI, it has been owned by Videocon originally, and she resided in it for years without paying rent. And when she was questioned about it, she actually said that she was not even aware that the place is owned by Videocon and that it's a rent-free accommodation for her. She said those were her husband's affairs, which she is not aware of it. In a very convoluted deal, this particular apartment was bought by the Kochchars from the Videocon for a song. Nobody believed her story that she did not even know that she was staying in an apartment which is owned by Videocon and that it is on a rent-free basis for a few years. Nevertheless, even this attachment of properties that would take place is going to ensure that she is punished by way of confiscating those proceeds of crime. Chanda Kochhar's case of a top executive of a bank indulging in corrupt practices to give fraudulent loans is not really an isolated case. There are many instances of top bankers having been found to have indulged in corrupt practices, and we would believe that the ones that are known are much less than the ones which are not known to us. In our opinion, the rot started from the top, and that is how it infected the entire organization. It is the big executives of the banks who were involved in these kind of malpractices and dubious conduct, and it is because of their involvement, their being accomplices, that frauds took place in which banks were cheated by way of siphoning of money, by way of bogus loans given, by way of money just taken away from the system by misusing it. It was primarily done for reasons of corruption. That is how the Videocon group and the SR group got loans of thousands of crores, which, as I said, turned bad, inflicting losses of thousands of crores on ICICI Bank. The irony is that when a small entrepreneur or a small borrower goes to borrow from a bank, he is not given any loan till he gives some major heavy security and he gives his personal guarantees. That takes place for loans which are of paltry small sums amount. But when it comes to loans given running in thousands of crores, experience says that neither is the security enough and nor are personal guarantees taken. And that's what happens in all the big loans, all the banking frauds that we are seeing. It is good that assets of fraudulent, corrupt bankers are being confiscated. That is the best way to punish them, apart from the prosecution that would take place. But in our opinion, if the banker is being punished, the borrower too needs to be punished in a similar manner. If the banker was a recipient of the ill-gotten gains that came by way of bribes, the main beneficiary of a bogus bad loan was the borrower. And we think that if Chanda Kochhar is being punished, then similar punishment needs to be meted out to the promoters of the SR and the Videocon group. We would like to see such punishment coming in cases of bankers and borrowers related to the PMC Bank, related to DHFL, housing, the HDIL, ILFS, Jet Airways, Alok Industries, and so many other such giant banking frauds that have taken place. Both the parties across the table need to be punished in a similar manner. Would such punishment bring these kind of NPA accounts to a closure in future, or rather reduce it quite a bit? We really don't think so, because the bankers and the borrowers who were fraudulent and corrupt, they finally operated under the shadow of some big babu or some big neta sitting in Delhi who made the calls and who ensured that those kind of loans were given, and who was also part of the take of the bribes that were passed on. Till this kingpin is not identified and punished, While the likes of Chanda Kochhar, the bankers and the borrowers deserve punishment, you will actually not see the end of these kind of dubious, corrupt malpractices in India. They will come back to haunt us at some point of time. This is Akhilesh Bhargava signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.